Greek mythology, Hephaestus was the god of blacksmithing. Hephaestus created a giant bronze automaton to defend the island of Crete, and that automaton's name was Talos. I do not know if that's where Talos gets its name. Haven't really pursued it that much, but I'm presuming as much. What's up, YouTubers? Today we're going to talk about the Defiant7 Talos. This button or plunge lock knife, it was designed by Les George. It weighs 4.6 ounces on my scale. Sports a 3.4-inch blade of MagnaCut. Super steel, HRC'd at 62 to 63, so it's definitely in that higher range. I definitely will say, having used this for a full month, it has reflected that. It prices at $285 US. So very, very good. Bottom line up front, this is one of the best ever plunge lock folding knives ever produced, let alone USA made. So that's for those people that just want to know, do I want to get this? It's gonna be a different kind of review from my normal. I'm not gonna just do comparisons or alternatives of this particular type of knife. I'm gonna say why this is maybe one of the best knives ever produced. And so I'm gonna go through that in the context of in comparison to some alternatives or alternative knives that you might buy based on recommendations. Knives that I recommend to people, and this definitely has just entered into the fray into the top one of those. So let's get started on this. So this knife is a button lock. It utilizes a plunge that goes into the back of the blade, and then likewise in the retracted position provides enough detent or resistance in effect to prevent the knife from coming out. You can shake it out. Oops, it's because I hit the button. I was gonna say this knife normally you have to hit. You do have to swing it quite hard, and button locks do generally have a fairly low, resistance from that, and it's because of the way the plunge has to partially go into the back of the blade in the retracted position, but in no means is through a drop of this particular knife or anything, or pulling it out of your pocket. Do I fear this one at all? In fact, this is probably one of the better ones I've held out there, and that's why I'm going to basically say, as a button lock goes, let me go ahead and bring some other comparisons or alternatives. Previously, kind of some of my top ones were the ProTech Mordex, that's designed by Ferrum Forge and made by ProTech. And let me go ahead and open up another one. This is the Hogue XO3. You can also get the XO1, which is aluminum. Again, that's aluminum. These are kind of what I had measured as some of the best USA made plunge lock or folding or button lock knives. So those are kind of some comparisons. Those may come back into the fray. Let's talk a little bit about this knife. It's the 3.5-inch blade MagnaCut. It absolutely did everything. I did have to strop it twice. That's it. No chips were developed on this, and I use my knives pretty much indiscriminately. I use it on pretty much everything. So as far as the blade, fantastic. Let's go ahead and bring out kind of some of the inspiration for this. This obviously being a Les George design. If you take a look at this is a Tonto version, but kind of right on top of it, it has that beautiful blade. This happens to be a Tonto version of the VSEP, right? The Value Engineering Change Proposal. But I do also happen to have one of the ProTech Rock Eyes. And so you can literally, let me go ahead and move the VSEP out of the way. And you can literally see these blades are essentially a mirror image of each other. So in a good way, it's such a classic drop point, nearly a clip point, but it's not. It's a drop point, and it was just excellent at pretty much every single task I gave it. And the grind was very good, very even, fantastic. The swedge definitely helps here. The thumb studs, the deployment, I guess this is jimping, but it's great. And what I will say, in fact, let me go ahead and just show this. This is kind of one of the determining factors on a harder use knife, or basically a tough knife, is I'll put on gloves and use it. And this knife, you can deploy it. It holds great in the hand, and in the context of gloves, the jimping, or I won't say jimping, but it's kind of inset, basically milling on here and then jimping here on the handle. Fantastic in gloves. If you take a look at the button lock, it is fully retracted there, so your chances of ever pushing that, even with gloves on and extra material, are basically null and void. It's not going to release. Let me go ahead and get a piece of wood. Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into, the Spine-Lac test, but I did, I was like, you know what, as this knife was entering into the fray of kind of one of the best knives ever, if not even of the year, it's just, it's fantastic. Every position you can hold it in is great. I will say I'm a medium large hand, so super large hands, there's going to be one little small, tiny, I won't say problem, but I'll just say a challenge, and that's within a pull cut position. You do have kind of what I call the end of this canoe here, that will go into your hand a little bit. Whereas, again, let me go ahead and bring some like comparisons out. In the V-set model, I don't have that because that releases and there's no basically upswept tip there. And so you can go ahead and do pull cut positions without any discomfort at all. This one, again, you're going to be carving wood a lot of times. Now you're going to probably be using a bushcraft knife. So that was excellent. Let me go ahead and show the texturing on the button. Fantastic. Oh, that's our first fantastic, I think, of the video. So it is literally perfect. And also in the out position, it's completely flush there. So you can push against this, and it's never going to release. So you can press all you want on a surface, and the button is absolutely fantastic. So you have action. It does run on washers that it just will go for days. You can backside flip it. It literally, the resistance / detent is perfect. So we're talking about the blade, 3.5 inches, legally carryable just almost everywhere. It's essentially perfect for use. The button and the resistance, perfect. The weight, I wore this in many different outfits, or no, outfits, yeah, that my wife wears outfits. This is in different pants and shorts and stuff. And because it's made out of aluminum, by the way, I didn't make mention of that, sorry, but it is made out of aluminum instead of titanium, and so it's a little bit lighter there. A typical titanium knife like this is probably going to be closer to 5.5, maybe on the higher side of that. This one was 4 point, what did I say? I think it was basically 4.6 ounces, yeah, by my measure. So with the aluminum, you have the absolute rigidity. This can be used in harder knife situations or harder use situations, absolutely, undoubtedly. And the fact that the sandwich construction here, or not the sandwich, sorry, it's two-piece of aluminum that come together, which form a full backspacer right there. In effect, it's great. You have a couple solid uses for that. One is your hands. None of your none of your skin's going to basically be pushed in on a very hard hammer grip cup like that. So you get that, and you can just let this roam around in your pocket, and it is absolutely going to take up less dust and stuff. This one, again, carried for a full month, just didn't pick up a lot of dust. So wow, the design choices, the execution of this, and then also one thing I was going to say is you're going to notice that these go into essentially probably barrel spacers effectively there. So you have screw going in on each side of something steel. And let me show kind of where I think that's a little bit more advantageous. Is because the ProTech Mordax here, you basically just have that going into the aluminum. Is it a terrible thing? No, it's not, but you have it going into something softer. Same thing even on my VSEP here. It does have the screws going into the other side titanium. Have I ever had a problem? No. Don't really have a problem with that at all. But is it better in my eyes as a design and manufacturing perspective to have screws going into basically receiving steel? Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to say that to me was definitely one of those fantastic things. Second fantastic. This clip, albeit it is not basically mountable over here. Left-handed, that's one good thing about button locks is they work just fine left-handed in terms of in use. Pocketing, it would be nice, I would say. It would make it a little bit uglier, but it would be nice if there were mounting for a pocket clip over here. I don't know if they're going to make any left-handed ones, but I will say this pocket clip is absolutely excellent. It has that nice rounding on it, has just enough bill. It gets over everything from jeans to, like I said, it's got just enough resistance here that it works perfectly from jeans to, I wore it in dress pants, even shorts. So yeah, the pocket clip essentially is perfect. There's no discomfort at all. If you were, if this were to land in your hand in such a position that it wouldn't be like between, in my hand, it literally goes between these two fingers. So there's literally no chance of it squishing. But even if your hand was different size, that it could, I will say that this nice rounding, no discomfort. Because I tried that. I was like, it's not the greatest there when I kind of reach back and I put that on there. But because of that excellent rounding, it's essentially, again, the perfect pocket clip. So, what, in terms of the lockup, actually, that's right. So I was going to bring some other things in here. So, in terms of the lockup, the very best lockup of any button lock that I've ever seen is the Freeman 451. It is literally, this is what if I were a farmer and I wanted a button lock that I could be wearing gloves with, that's the perfect lockup. This is every bit as up and down, and it's just, like I said, everything's a series of trade-offs. You loosen the pivot a little bit just to make the action fantastic, but it's maybe not as perfect as the Freeman 451, but it absolutely is on par with like this one. And then, in fact, let me show one of the kind of the last ones that I really considered it kind of the pound for pound in the same fight with, and it's the Spartan Blades Palace, which this one's a little bit longer blade. It's this is about a four inch blade, I think. A little bit longer handle, but this one had a very soft detent because they had to serve both the thumb studs as well as, I'll put it this way, it had a very weak detent for the flipper. So, and you do have the lock sticking out there. So again, in terms of the pure comparison, I do like, again, you have the screws into the back barrel spacers, essentially. They're threaded. So it's excellent. The size of it, perfect. Again, for carrying, it can basically bat with the big boys, and it can do the smaller, finer tasks too. I don't know. It's going to be really tough for any knife that I review the rest of this year to beat this one out as knife of the year. Could happen, but I don't know. It may not. This is entered into the fray of knives that when people that just are used to buying a $25-$35 knife or whatever, they say, hey, I'd like a really good knife. What would be a good one? This one, for the price, the price value, $285 for what you get. If you think about, like, you get a Microtech MSI, good knife, but you have to get the FRN ones for it to, to break that price point. And then if you want to put on aluminum scales from Original Goat, that puts it into, sure enough, right around the $280 frame. And likewise, the previous kind of higher end, harder use button lock that I offered to people, or not offered, but that I basically offered up as, hey, try this out. I would always have people try it in their hands, and so that's what part of my collection is I let people try and decide, hey, what's good for you. This was a previous recommendation at $280, $285. It's, I don't even know. I bought the Palace a couple years ago, so I don't know. That might maybe even be higher in price. So again, price, value, construction, materials, heat treat, grind, action, pocket clip, carry, weight, balanced. It's this knife, I'm telling you, I was supposed to do this review 2 weeks ago, but whenever you run across a knife that you just find that everything is like, wait a minute, are there flaws in this? There is one flaw. I won't call it a flaw. No, actually, I'm going to go so far as to say it's not a flaw. But the stop pin back here, which is nice and big and beefy, you can see that. Let me go ahead and hold it up. It did after about 1 to 2,000 openings. It just created a little bit of noise. And that's because you have steel being bumped, thousands of times by a knife that gets thwacked by somebody. I don't hold back. And so it may generate some small, finite difference there. On blades that I give a crap about, the noise on that, and I don't on this one. This is a user knife, but it's also a beautiful knife. It's actually kind of sexy. Take a look at that. But for knives that I do care about that particular thing, open this thing up, put a little bit of Loctite, blue Loctite in there, and it'll just eliminate that. Essentially creates a kind of a waxy sort of layer. So, yeah, the knife that I previously would tell people, I'd say, hey, enter into the kind of higher end knife game, but still production use, and you're not going to fret about it if something happens to it, you scratch it or otherwise. Was really the Hogue Ritter RSK MK2, and this one goes for $180. But this one does have G10, and if you want to go ahead and put on aluminum on that, it takes you right to exactly $280. So they can't cut anywhere else here. Still make the most amazing product. Oh, one thing I did want to show that was it's a T15 in-house made pivot, and mine was a little bit stiff, but again, it's solid, and I know that. And then the one thing that was a little bit odd, and I won't say this is a bad thing at all. In fact, I'd probably choose T9 to T8, is these other body screws back here, they're actually T9s. So yeah, they're actually T9. They're so yeah, that's just unusual. Most people that work with knives are going to have access to a T9. Most people do have a set. It goes from T6 up to T20. So, oh, sorry, this was a T20, not a T15. My apologies. So technical correction there, but I know I'm all over the map on this one, but I'm very, very excited about this. That being said, I'm actually going to give this knife away because I bought another one. I bought a more customized one, and I'll go ahead and do a separate video in a week or two on that one and tell why. But this one, I'm approaching 2,000 subscribers, so as I cross the 2,000 mark, this is definitely going to be one of the knives I'm going to give away just because somebody else, this knife is that good. I needed to have another one for the end of the year video for knife of the year because this is going to be in the conversation. The Defiant7 Talos, basically it's Les George Chad Nichols started this company, and they're working with 3 Padawans to to basically build skills in this, and they are teaching them amazingly well. So this is a knife that anyone would be proud, happy, and trust me, it will put a smile on your face every time you use it. When I cut stuff up, people are just like, whoa, that's really nice. Haven't sharpened it once in a month, so haven't needed to. Overall, obviously, this knife is a champion. It absolutely is. And I hope this was interesting, if not of use. And I appreciate the like and subscribe if it was. And like I said, look out for this knife to be given away sometime, probably, I'm hoping by the end of the summer, maybe I'll be above 2,000 subscribers. So this will definitely be probably the marquee knife that I go ahead and give away. In the meantime, not a subscriber, or sorry, not a sponsor, but I will go ahead and link below where you can get this at usamadeblade.com. It's an exclusive to them, and it's freaking amazing. So appreciate it. Take care.